Prologue: The Birth of the Legends. Long before Ram's arrival on earth, the balance between righteousness and darkness had begun to collapse. The gods watched in sorrow as Ravan's power grew beyond control. His ambition, arrogance, and cruelty had brought suffering to the mortal world, and his influence had even begun to threaten the heavens themselves. Seeking a solution, the gods turned to Lord Vishnu for guidance. Lord Vishnu reminded them of the origin of Ravan's strength. Through years of intense penance and devotion, Ravan had earned a powerful boon from Lord Brahma. Driven by his immense pride, he had asked for protection from the greatest beings of existence, the gods, the demons, the spirits, and the other powerful creatures. But in his arrogance, Ravan had overlooked one form of life. He had considered humans weak, insignificant, and incapable of challenging him. Therefore, he had not asked for protection from them. Lord Vishnu saw this as a path through which balance could be restored. "I shall descend to the mortal world," declared Lord Vishnu. "I will take birth as a human being. In that form, I will experience the limitations of human life. I will know hunger, pain, struggle, and uncertainty. I will not possess the awareness of my own divine nature. I will walk the path of a mortal. And through this life form, I will bring an end to the tyranny of the demon king." Far away, upon the sacred peaks of Mount Kailash, Lord Shiva and Mother Parvati discussed the decision of Lord Vishnu. Mother Parvati reflected upon the challenge before him. "Ravan is your devotee, Lord Shiva. He performed great penance in your name and received powerful blessings and celestial weapons from you. If Lord Vishnu descends as an ordinary human, will he truly be able to overcome such a mighty warrior?" Lord Shiva remained thoughtful. "Ravan has indeed been a devoted follower," he said. "His devotion was powerful, but his ego transformed his gifts into instruments of destruction. His actions have caused immense suffering across the worlds." After a moment of silence, Lord Shiva continued, "Perhaps I too must contribute to this divine purpose." From his own essence, Lord Shiva decided to send forth a fragment of his power, a spark of Rudra's strength that would take upon the mortal realm. "This being will carry the force of nature itself," said Shiva. "He will be as powerful and unstoppable as the wind. He will possess immense strength, yet his heart will remain noble and devoted. Through this form, I shall assist Lord Vishnu on his mission." Thus, a divine force was destined to emerge, one who would later become the greatest devotee of Lord Ram. Chapter 1: The Birth of the Princess of Ayodhya. Long before the events of Ramayana unfolded, the prosperous kingdom of Kosala was ruled by King Dasharatha, a respected monarch from the illustrious Ikshvaku or Sola dynasty. His capital, Ayodhya, was celebrated as the city of wealth, justice, and happiness, where people lived peacefully under his wise leadership. Despite his success as a ruler, Dasharatha carried a deep sorrow. Years had passed, yet none of his three queens, Kaushalya, Kaikeyi, and Sumitra, had given birth to an heir. As time went on, the king became increasingly concerned that the great Sola dynasty, preserved by generations of righteous rulers, might end with him. Seeking guidance, Dasharatha turned to the revered sage Rishyasringa. Following the sage's advice, he performed the sacred Putrakameshti Yajna, a ritual traditionally undertaken by those who desired children. The sacrifice pleased the gods, and from the sacred fire emerged Agni, the deity of fire, carrying a divine bowl filled with celestial nectar. Agni instructed the king to distribute the blessed offering amongst his queens, assuring him that they would give birth to extraordinary sons. Dasharatha carefully shared the nectar with Queen Kaushalya and Queen Kaikeyi. By the time Queen Sumitra had arrived, the offering had already been divided. So Kaushalya and Kaikeyi each shared a portion of their own with her. In the months that followed, joy filled the royal palace. Queen Kaushalya gave birth to Ram, the eldest prince. Queen Kaikeyi welcomed Bharat, while Queen Sumitra gave birth to the twins Lakshman and Shatrughna. The entire kingdom celebrated, believing that the future of Ayodhya had finally been secured. As the four princes grew, each displayed remarkable qualities. They were disciplined, compassionate, courageous, and devoted to righteousness. Among them, Ram stood apart. Even as a child, his calm nature, wisdom, and unwavering sense of duty inspired everyone around him. On one unforgettable occasion, Queen Kaushalya witnessed a glimpse of his divine universal form, realizing that her son possessed a greatness far beyond that of an ordinary prince. When the princes reached the proper age, they were sent to the ashram of Guru Vashistha. There, they received a complete education, studying the Vedas, philosophy, ethics, governance, diplomacy, and the responsibilities of an ideal ruler. Alongside their academic learning, they mastered archery, swordsmanship, chariot warfare, and other martial disciplines required to protect their kingdom. Among all four brothers, Ram's talent was exceptional. His teachers admired not only his unmatched skill with weapons, but also his humility, self-control, and unwavering commitment to dharma. Lakshman remained constantly by Ram's side, while Bharat and Shatrughna formed an equally inseparable bond. For several peaceful years, the princes assisted King Dasharatha in the affairs of the kingdom, and Ayodhya flourished under the promise of its future rulers. But that peaceful chapter was about to end. One day, the arrival of the great Sage Vishwamitra at the royal court brought a request that would change Ram's life forever and mark the true beginning of Ramayana. Chapter 2: Vishwamitra's Request and the Fall of Tataka. The peaceful life of Ayodhya took an unexpected turn when the revered sage Vishwamitra arrived at King Dasharatha's court. His visit was not ceremonial. He had come seeking help for a crisis that threatened the very foundation of righteousness. For a long time, sages living in the forests had been performing yajnas and spiritual austerities. But each time these rituals neared completion, powerful Rakshasas would appear, polluting the sacrificial fires and attacking the hermitages. Years of devotion were being destroyed in a matter of moments. Determined to protect the sages, King Dasharatha immediately offered his finest army. Confident in the strength of his warriors, he promised to send them into the forest to eliminate the threat. Vishwamitra gently declined. He explained that ordinary soldiers could not overcome these supernatural enemies. Their strength and dark powers made them far more dangerous than any human army could handle. Only one person, the sage believed, possessed the destiny and the ability to confront them: Prince Ram. Dashrath was stunned. Ram was still very young. Although he had mastered every weapon taught by his teachers, he had never faced a real battlefield. The thought of sending his beloved son into a forest filled with deadly Rakshasas filled the king with fear. After consulting Sage Vashistha and the royal advisors, Dashrath understood that Vishwamitra's request carried a greater purpose. With great reluctance, he gave his permission. Ram accepted the responsibility without hesitation. For him, protecting the innocent was a duty, not a choice. Lakshman, whose devotion to his elder brother was unwavering, immediately declared that wherever Ram went, he would follow. Under Vishwamitra's guidance, the two princes left the safety of Ayodhya and entered the vast forests. During the journey, the sage shared the history of the land they were about to enter. Long ago, he explained, this region had been peaceful and prosperous. Its downfall began with Tataka. Tataka had not always been a demon. She was born as the daughter of Yaksha Suketu, who had performed severe penance to obtain a child. Pleased with his devotion, Lord Brahma blessed him with a daughter, gifted with the extraordinary strength of 1,000 elephants. As Tataka grew older, she married and became the mother of 2 sons, including Maricha. But tragedy changed the course of her life. After her husband was destroyed through the curse of a powerful sage, Tataka, consumed by anger and revenge, attacked the sage along with her son. Their actions invited another terrible curse. They were transformed into fearsome Rakshasas, and Tataka lost both her graceful form and her compassion. Over time, she became the terror of the forest. Villages were abandoned, travelers disappeared, and sacred hermitages were reduced to ruins. A land that once flourished now echoed with fear. When Vishwamitra asked Ram to confront her, the young prince hesitated for a moment. He wondered whether it was right to raise his bow against a woman. The sage answered calmly that dharma is measured by one's action and not by one's appearance. When a person abandons righteousness and causes suffering to countless innocent lives, protecting the world becomes the highest duty. Accepting this teaching, Ram prepared himself. The sound of his bowstring echoed across the forest like thunder. The roar reached Tataka. She emerged with terrifying speed, shaking the forest as she advanced. Using both immense physical strength and powerful illusions, she launched a relentless assault against the prince. At first, Ram fought only to restrain her. Even while defending himself, he hoped to end the battle without taking her life. But Tataka's attacks only became more violent. She continued to unleash her powers, refusing every chance to retreat. Realizing that allowing her to live would only bring more destruction upon innocent people, Ram understood that this battle was no longer a matter of personal hesitation. It had become an act of protecting dharma itself. Drawing a final arrow, he released it with perfect precision. The weapon struck its mark, bringing Tataka's reign of terror to an end. The forest fell silent for the first time in many years, and the sages were finally free from the fear that had haunted them for so long. Yet, this victory marked only the beginning of Ram's journey. The defeat of Tataka would soon draw the attention of even greater enemies, setting in motion events that would shape the destiny of the world. Chapter 3: The Sacred Yajna and Ram's First Great Victory. The defeat of Tataka marked a turning point in Ram's journey. Sage Vishwamitra had witnessed the young prince's courage, discipline, and unwavering commitment to righteousness. The sage knew that Ram was destined for far greater purpose, and he decided it was time to prepare him for the challenges that lay ahead. As a reward for his victory, Vishwamitra entrusted Ram with an extraordinary collection of divine weapons. These were no ordinary arms forged by human hands. They were celestial astras, each empowered by sacred mantras and blessed by the gods themselves. Along with these came powerful shastras, divine swords, maces, spears, and other legendary weapons used by great warriors of the past. Patiently, the sage instructed Ram in the knowledge required to invoke these heavenly weapons, and equally important, the wisdom to withdraw them once their purpose had been fulfilled. Such power demanded restraint, for a warrior who could not control his weapons was unworthy of possessing them. Vishwamitra also taught both Ram and Lakshmana the sacred mantras known as Bala and Atibala. These mystical disciplines strengthened both body and mind, protecting them from exhaustion, hunger, thirst, and fatigue. With these blessings, the young princes were prepared for the task that had brought Vishwamitra to Ayodhya in the first place. The 3 travelers soon reached Siddhashram, the sage's ancient hermitage. It was here that Vishwamitra intended to perform a sacred yajna that would continue uninterrupted for 6 days and 6 nights. previous attempts had always ended in failure, as Rakshasas attacked during the final stages of the ritual, defilling the sacred fire and scattering the assembled sages. This time, Ram and Lakshman stood guard. While the sages remained completely focused on the ceremony, the two princes watched every direction with unwavering alertness. Empowered by the mantras they had learned, they required neither sleep nor food and remained ready throughout the entire ritual. For 5 days, the forest remained strangely quiet. Then, as the ceremony approached its final moments, on the 6th night, the silence was shattered. Dark clouds gathered overhead, and the sky seemed to tremble as a vast host of Rakshasas descended upon the hermitage. Leading them were Maricha and Subahu, the sons of Tataka, determined to avenge their mother's death and destroy the sacred ritual once again. Using their dark powers, the demons hurled blood, flesh, and other impure substances towards the sacrificial altar in an attempt to pollute the yajna before it could be completed. But this time, the sages were not defenseless. Ram immediately invoked one of the celestial astras bestowed upon him by Vishwamitra, creating an impenetrable defense around the sacred fire. The offerings remained untouched as Lakshman engaged the advancing Rakshasas with unmatched speed and precision. The battle quickly spread across the forest. Demons charged from every direction, yet the two brothers fought with remarkable coordination. Ram called upon different divine weapons as the situation demanded, while Lakshman prevented the enemy from breaking through their defenses. Recognizing Maricha as the stronger of the two leaders, Ram chose not to kill him. Instead, he released a powerful astra that struck the demon with tremendous force, hurling him across the sky and carrying him hundreds of miles away until he fell into the distant ocean. Subahu, however, continued the attack without retreat. Seeing that the demon remained committed to destroying the sacred ceremony, Ram unleashed another celestial weapon. This time, the strike proved fatal, bringing Subahu's life to an end. Witnessing the fall of their commander and the overwhelming power of the two princes, the remaining Rakshasas abandoned the battlefield. Those who survived fled deep into the forests, leaving Siddhashram in peace. For the first time in many years, Vishwamitra's yajna reached its successful conclusion without interruption. The sages offered their prayers with grateful hearts, and Vishwamitra looked upon Ram and Lakshman with immense satisfaction. The trust he had placed in the princes had been fully justified. Their first great mission was complete, but destiny was already preparing them for another journey. One that would soon lead them to the kingdom of Mithila, and an encounter that would forever change Ram's life. Chapter 4: Sita of Mithila and the Bow of Shiva. With the sacred yajna successfully completed, Sage Vishwamitra prepared to continue his journey. Accompanied by Ram, Lakshman, and several disciples, he set out towards the prosperous kingdom of Mithila, ruled by the wise and virtuous King Janak. The city was alive with celebration. Kings, princes, sages, and distinguished guests from many kingdoms had gathered for a magnificent occasion. King Janak had announced the Swayamvara of his beloved daughter, Princess Sita. According to ancient tradition, a Swayamvara allowed a princess to choose her husband from among worthy suitors. But in Mithila, the choice would not be made by wealth, power, or royal lineage alone. As they travelled, Vishwamitra shared the remarkable story of Sita's birth. Years earlier, while King Janak was performing a sacred ritual, he personally ploughed a ceremonial field, as was customary before certain yajnas. During this ritual, his plough uncovered an infant girl lying within the earth itself. Seeing the child as a divine blessing, Janak adopted her and raised her as his own daughter. Because she had emerged from the furrow created by the plough, she was given the name Sita, a Sanskrit word that means furrow. As Sita grew, her grace, wisdom, compassion, and unwavering devotion became known throughout the kingdom. Yet, Janak believed that such an extraordinary princess deserved a husband of exceptional character and strength. To ensure that only the worthiest man would win her hand, he established an extraordinary challenge centered around a sacred heirloom of his family, the mighty bow of Lord Shiva, known as the Shivadhanush. The bow was so massive that it rested inside a gigantic chest mounted on wheels and required many strong men to simply move it. For years, renowned warriors and powerful kings had traveled to Mithila hoping to claim Sita's hand. One after another, they failed. Most could not even lift the bow from its resting place, let alone string it. According to one well-known story, King Janak was inspired to create this challenge after witnessing an astonishing moment from Sita's childhood. While playing, Sita is said to have effortlessly moved the sacred bow to retrieve an object that had fallen beneath it. Realizing that only someone truly extraordinary could become her husband, Janak vowed that he would marry her daughter only to the man capable of stringing Shiva's divine bow. When Vishwamitra arrived in Mithila with Rama and Lakshmana, news of the two young princes quickly spread through the city. Their courage, noble appearance, and reputation had already begun to attract attention. King Janak welcomed the sage with great respect and extended his hospitality to the princess. During their visit, Vishwamitra requested that Ram be allowed to see the legendary bow. The enormous chest containing the Shivadhanush was brought into the royal assembly by numerous attendants. The gathered kings and nobles watched with curiosity as the young prince of Ayodhya stepped forward. With complete calmness, Ram opened the chest. He grasped the great bow and lifted it with remarkable ease, astonishing everyone present. Then, as he began to bend it in order to string it, an immense sound echoed the palace. The divine bow snapped into two. Its thunderous crack resounded across Mithila, shaking the earth and leaving the entire assembly speechless. For a few moments, no one moved. Then the silence gave way to celebration. King Janak's face filled with joy. The impossible challenge had finally been overcome. Before the eyes of the assembled kings, he had found the man worthy of becoming Sita's husband. Preparations for the royal wedding began at once. But the sound of Shiva's broken bow had travelled far beyond the walls of Mithila. It reached the ears of a formidable warrior sage whose devotion to Lord Shiva was unmatched. His name was Parashurama, and unlike the people of Mithila, he did not greet the breaking of the sacred bow with celebration. Chapter 5: The Meeting of Two Avatars. The joyous celebration in Mithila had barely begun when an unexpected visitor arrived. The thunderous sound of Shiva's bow breaking had echoed across the land, reaching the ears of one of the most formidable sages and warriors of his age, Parashurama. The atmosphere in the royal court changed instantly. Standing at the entrance was the fierce Brahmin warrior, carrying his legendary axe. His expression reflected both anger and disbelief. Before him lay the broken pieces of the sacred bow of Lord Shiva, an object he deeply revered. His voice echoed through the assembly. "Who has done this?" No one answered immediately. Kings and princes who had gathered for the Swayamvar lowered their eyes, unwilling to face the wrath of the legendary sage. Parashurama was no ordinary ascetic. He was revered as the sixth incarnation of Lord Vishnu. In every age, whenever adharma threatened to overwhelm righteousness, Vishnu descended to restore balance. During Parashurama's lifetime, many Kshatriya rulers had become arrogant and tyrannical. Their abuse of power reached such an extent that Parashurama's own father, the sage Jamadagni was slain. Driven by grief and a commitment to justice, Parashuram waged a relentless campaign against those corrupt rulers. Tradition tells us that he defeated the Kshatriyas again and again until the tyranny was brought to an end. His unmatched skill with the axe became legendary, and his name inspired both respect and fear throughout Bharat. As silence filled the court, Ram calmly stepped forward. With humility, he folded his hands and said, "Revered sage, it was I who lifted the bow, and while attempting to string it, it broke." Parashuram carefully observed the young prince standing before him. This was not the proud warrior he had expected. Ram's face showed neither arrogance nor fear. He stood with complete composure, speaking with the respect due to a great sage. Even so, Parashuram was not convinced. Was this truly the prince who had broken the divine bow, or had fortune simply favored him? To discover the truth, Parashuram presented Ram with another extraordinary weapon, the celestial bow associated with Lord Vishnu. "If your strength is genuine," he declared, "string this bow before me." Without hesitation, Ram accepted the challenge. Holding the divine bow with steady hands, he drew the string into place with effortless grace. The impossible had been accomplished once again. At that very moment, Parashuram understood. This was no ordinary prince. The calm presence before him carried the same divine essence that he himself had served throughout his life. The realization dawned upon him that the age of his own mission was ending, and a new incarnation of Vishnu had arrived to uphold Dharma in the next great chapter of history. The anger that had filled his heart disappeared. In its place came reverence. Parashuram bowed before Ram, acknowledged the divine purpose that lay ahead, and peacefully withdrew from worldly affairs, leaving the path clear for the next avatar to fulfill his destiny. Chapter 6: The Royal Weddings and the Choice of an Heir. As Parashuram watched the young prince effortlessly string the sacred bow of Lord Vishnu, every trace of anger disappeared from his face. In that moment, he understood that the prince standing before him was no ordinary human being. The divine purpose that had guided his own life had now passed to a new generation. His mission to restore righteousness in an earlier age had reached its conclusion, and another incarnation of Vishnu had come to continue that eternal work. With deep respect, Parashuram bowed before Ram. Blessing the prince, he peacefully departed for the forests and mountains to continue his life of penance. The tension that had gripped the royal court vanished, and the assembled kings breathed a collective sigh of relief. According to Hindu tradition, Parashuram's story does not end there. It is believed that at the close end of Kali Yuga, he will once again emerge from his long meditation to become the Guru of Kalki, the 10th and the final avatar of Lord Vishnu. With the challenge of the divine bow complete and every obstacle removed, Mithila turned its attention to celebration. King Janak joyfully announced the marriage of Ram and Sita. Messengers were sent to Ayodhya, inviting King Dasharatha and the royal family to witness the auspicious occasion. Dasharatha arrived with immense happiness, and preparations began for a magnificent wedding unlike any other kingdoms had seen. The celebrations united not just two individuals, but two great royal families. Ram was married to Prince Sita, whose wisdom, grace, and unwavering devotion perfectly complemented his own noble character. The joyous occasion also brought together the other brothers of Ayodhya with the daughters of Mithila. Bharat married Mandavi, Lakshman was wed to Urmila, and Shatrughna married Shrutakirti. These four marriages strengthened the bond between the kingdoms of Kosala and Mithila, creating a lasting alliance founded on mutual respect and affection. After the ceremonies concluded, the royal procession returned to Ayodhya amid music, celebration, and blessings from the people. As the years passed, the relationship between Ram and Sita grew even stronger. Their marriage became an ideal of mutual respect, trust, and devotion. Hindu tradition remembers their union as the earthly reflection of the eternal relationship between Lord Vishnu and Goddess Lakshmi. Within the royal court, Ram continued to distinguish himself through his character rather than his position. He listened patiently before making decisions, treated everyone with fairness, and placed the welfare of his people above personal ambition. His mastery of warfare was matched by his understanding of governance, diplomacy, and spiritual discipline. Whether among ministers, scholars, soldiers, or ordinary citizens, Ram earned admiration wherever he went. His humility made him approachable, while his unwavering commitment to dharma inspired complete confidence in those around him. King Dasharatha watched his eldest son with increasing pride. Advancing age reminded the king that the future of Ayodhya had to be secured. Choosing the next ruler was the most important decision of his reign, and he refused to make it based solely on father's affection. He therefore consulted his ministers, respected sages, military commanders, and trusted members of the royal court. Each was encouraged to speak honestly about who should inherit the throne. Again and again, the answer was the same. Ram possessed every quality expected of an ideal king. His wisdom, compassion, courage, and self-discipline, and devotion to justice made him the natural choice to lead Ayodhya into the future. Satisfied that the decision reflected the will of both the kingdom and its advisors, Dasharatha resolved to announce Ram as his successor. But not every heart in the palace welcomed this decision. Quietly observing these discussions was a member of the royal household whose growing jealousy would soon change the destiny of the entire kingdom. A single voice, influenced by resentment and fear, was about to set in motion one of the most heartbreaking chapters of Ramayana. Chapter 7: The Two Boons That Changed Ayodhya. The decision had finally been made. After careful discussions with his ministers, sages, and trusted advisors, King Dasharatha was convinced that Ram was the ideal successor to the throne of Ayodhya. The entire court welcomed the choice with enthusiasm, and preparations for the grand coronation began immediately. Decorations filled the city, prayers were offered in temples, and the people celebrated the news with great joy. No one imagined that within a single day, those celebrations would turn into sorrow. Pleased with the kingdom's response, Dasharatha retired to the palace to share the happy news with Queen Kaikeyi, one of his most beloved queens. But the moment he entered the chambers, he sensed that something was terribly wrong. Instead of welcoming him with happiness, Kaikeyi sat silently, her royal ornaments cast aside. Tears filled her eyes, and her expression reflected deep pain. Alarmed by her condition, Dasharatha rushed to her side. "My queen," he asked gently, "who has caused you such sorrow? Tell me what troubles your heart, and I will do everything within my power to make it right." The king had no idea that the seeds of this tragedy had been planted long before he entered the room. For many years, Kaikeyi had been accompanied by her loyal maidservant, Manthara, who had cared for her since her childhood and continued to serve her in Ayodhya after her marriage. Deeply attached to Kaikeyi and especially protective of Prince Bharat, Manthara viewed the announcement of Ram's coronation with suspicion and resentment. In her eyes, Bharat, not Ram, should inherit the throne. Over time, she began to whisper her fears into Kaikeyi's mind. She warned that once Ram became king, Queen Kaushalya would become the most respected queen in the palace. Kaikeyi, she claimed, would gradually lose her influence, while Bharat would live forever in his elder brother's shadow. At first, Kaikeyi dismissed these suggestions. She loved Ram sincerely and had always treated him with the same affection she showed her own son. She saw no reason to oppose his coronation. But Manthara refused to abandon her plan. Patiently and repeatedly, she continued to fill Kaikeyi's mind with doubt. What had begun as harmless questions slowly grew into fear. Fear gradually turned into insecurity, and insecurity eventually clouded the queen's judgment. Finally, Manthra reminded Kaikeyi of an event from years earlier. During a fierce battle, Kaikeyi had courageously protected Dasharatha's life and cared for him after he was wounded. Grateful for her devotion, the king had promised her 2 boons, assuring her that she could claim them whenever she wished. Until that day, Kaikeyi had never asked for those promises to be fulfilled. Now, persuaded by Manthra, she decided the moment had come. Looking into Dasharatha's eyes, she reminded him of the vows he had once made. The king immediately agreed to honor them, never imagining what she was about to request. Kaikeyi spoke calmly. For her first boon, she asked that Bharat be crowned the next king of Ayodhya. Dasharatha was surprised, but before he could respond, she made her second request. Ram, she declared, must leave Ayodhya and live in exile in the forest for 14 years. The words struck the king like a thunderbolt. His face lost all color. The joy that had filled his heart only moments earlier vanished instantly, replaced by disbelief and unbearable grief. Bound by his sacred promise, yet unable to imagine life without Ram, Dasharatha found himself trapped between a king's duty and a father's love. The fate of Ayodhya had changed forever. Chapter 8. The exile begins. The requests made by Queen Kaikeyi left King Dasharatha devastated. He pleaded with her again and again, hoping she would withdraw her demands. He offered wealth, honor, and anything else within his power if only she would change her mind. But Kaikeyi remained firm. Having claimed the 2 boons that Dasharatha had promised long ago, she insisted that the king keep his word. Behind her determination lay the influence of Manthra. The maid-servant understood that simply placing Bharat on the throne might not secure his future. Ram was deeply loved by the people of Ayodhya. As long as he remained in the kingdom, their admiration would naturally remain with him. In Manthra's eyes, only a long exile could remove Ram from public life and allow Bharat to rule without comparison. Bound by his promise, Dasharatha found himself helpless. With a heavy heart, he summoned Ram to the palace. The aging king struggled to speak. Overcome with grief, he could barely explain what had happened. Kaikeyi herself revealed the 2 boons. Bharat would be crowned as the next king, and Ram must leave Ayodhya immediately to spend 14 years living in the forest as an ascetic. For a brief moment, the room fell silent. Then Ram answered with complete calmness. He reminded his father that a king's promise was sacred. If Dasharatha had given his word, then it was his duty as a son to ensure that the promise was honored. He accepted the exile without anger, resentment, or complaint, believing that protecting Dharma was more important than holding on to power. The news spread quickly through the palace. Lakshman was unable to contain his outrage. He could not understand how such an injustice could be allowed to happen. In his anger, he declared that he was prepared to fight anyone who stood in Ram's way, even if it meant opposing the royal command itself. But Ram gently stopped him. He explained that righteousness could never be defended through disobedience to a father's solemn vow. True strength, he said, often lies in accepting hardship for the sake of duty. Sita was equally determined. When Ram suggested that she may remain safely in the palace, she refused. As his wife, she believed her place was wherever he was, whether in a royal palace or deep within the forest. Comfort and luxury meant nothing if they were separated. Lakshman also refused to stay behind, declaring that he would devote himself to protecting his brother and sister-in-law throughout the exile. He joined them without any hesitation. Dressed in simple garments instead of royal robes, the three prepared to leave Ayodhya. The streets were filled with grieving citizens. Men, women, and children followed Ram's chariot, unable to accept that the prince they loved was leaving them. Many begged him to return, while others wept openly as he passed. Inside the palace, Dashrath watched helplessly as his beloved son disappeared from his sight. The sorrow was almost more than the aged king could bear. Beyond the walls of Ayodhya, a completely different life awaited the three exiles. Gone were the comforts of the palace. Their days were now spent crossing rivers, walking through dense forests, and adapting to a life shaped by nature. They encountered towering mountains, quiet hermitages, wild animals, and devoted sages who welcomed them with kindness. Although the forest demanded constant endurance, it also revealed a different kind of peace. Free from the distractions of royal life, Ram, Sita, and Lakshman found strength in simplicity and in one another's company. Yet, the wilderness held dangers that no one could predict. Far away, another chain of events was already beginning. A Rakshasi wandering through the forest would soon encounter Ram, and that meeting would become the spark that ultimately led to one of the greatest conflicts in the Ramayana. Chapter 9: Bharat's Loyalty and the Wrath of Shurpanakha. As Ram, Sita, and Lakshman continued their years of exile, Ayodhya was overcome by sorrow. Separated from the son he loved most, King Dasharatha found himself consumed by grief. The memory of sending Ram into the forest haunted him day and night. Unable to bear the pain of that separation, the aged king eventually passed away, leaving the kingdom in mourning. At that time, Bharat was away in the kingdom of his maternal relatives, completely unaware of the events that had unfolded in Ayodhya. When he returned, he was greeted not with celebration, but with heartbreaking news. His father was gone, Ram had been exiled, and all of it had happened because of the two boons claimed by his own mother, Queen Kaikeyi. Bharat was devastated. Far from rejoicing at the prospect of becoming king, he was overwhelmed with sorrow and shame. He openly condemned the actions that had led to Ram's exile and refused to accept a throne gained through such circumstances. Determined to correct what he believed was a terrible injustice, Bharat gathered the royal family, ministers, and citizens and journeyed into the forest to meet Ram. When the brothers were reunited, the meeting was filled with emotion. Bharat informed Ram of King Dasharatha's passing and pleaded with him to return to Ayodhya and accept the crown that rightfully belonged to him. The news of his father's death deeply saddened Ram. Yet even in that moment of grief, he remained steadfast. He reminded Bharat that their father's promise had to be honored completely. Until the 14 years of exile had ended, he could not return to Ayodhya without abandoning his duty. Although disappointed, Bharat understood his brother's unwavering commitment to dharma. He therefore made a solemn vow of his own. Refusing to sit upon the royal throne as a king, Bharat requested Ram's sandals. Returning to Ayodhya, he placed them upon the throne as a symbol that Ram alone remained the rightful ruler. Bharat governed the kingdom only as his brother's representative, patiently awaiting the day of Ram's return. While these events unfolded in Ayodhya, another turning point was approaching deep within the forests. One day, a Rakshasi named Shurpanakha wandered into the region where Ram, Sita, and Lakshman were living. Possessing the ability to change her appearance, she transformed herself into a beautiful woman before approaching the prince. Captivated by Ram's noble appearance, she proposed that he become her husband. Ram responded with courtesy and gentle humor. He explained that he was already married and completely devoted to Sita. Suggesting that she speak instead with Lakshman, he politely declined her proposal. Shurpanakha then approached Lakshman with the same request. Lakshman, understanding his brother's playful response, answered in a similarly light-hearted manner. He told her that he was only Ram's servant and therefore hardly any appropriate husband for someone seeking a great prince. The repeated rejection filled Shurpanakha with anger. Her disguise disappeared, revealing her fearsome form. Enraged by jealousy, she turned her fury towards Sita, believing that removing her rival would allow her to claim Ram for herself. As she rushed forward to attack, Lakshman acted instantly. To protect Sita, he drew his weapon and struck Shurpanakha, severing her nose and leaving her humiliated. Crying out in pain and rage, she fled into the forest. What seemed like a brief encounter would soon have enormous consequences. Driven by humiliation and a desire for revenge, Shurpanakha was about to seek the help of powerful allies, setting in motion the chain of events that would ultimately bring Ram and Ravan into direct conflict. Chapter 10: Ram's Battle Against the Forces of Dandaka. Humiliated and filled with anger after her encounter with Ram, Lakshman and Sita, Shurpanakha fled through the forest seeking revenge. Her destination was the territory ruled by her brother Khar, a powerful Rakshasa chief who governed the Dandaka region. The forests of Dandaka had long been feared because of the Rakshasas who inhabited them, and Khar was among their most formidable warriors. When Khar saw his sister's wounded condition, he was immediately filled with rage. Shurpanakha described what had happened, but her account was filled with anger and resentment. She portrayed Ram and Lakshman as enemies who had insulted and humiliated her without reason. Her words inflamed Khar's fury, and he decided that the two princes must be destroyed. He first sent a group of powerful Rakshasa warriors to eliminate Ram and Lakshman. However, the princes were prepared. After the earlier confrontation with Shurpanakha, they understood that retaliation was likely. When the warriors arrived, Ram and Lakshman faced them without fear. The battle was swift, and the Rakshasas who had come to attack them were defeated. When Khar learned that his warriors had been destroyed, his anger grew even stronger. Unable to accept defeat, he gathered a massive army of Rakshasas and marched towards Ram's location. Thousands of warriors followed him, carrying deadly weapons and determined to avenge their fallen comrades. The sound of their advance shook the forest. Ram immediately understood that a great battle was approaching. He instructed Lakshman to take Sita to a place of safety while he faced the approaching army alone. As the Rakshasa forces entered the battlefield, they expected to find an easy victory. They saw only one warrior standing before them, but that warrior was Ram. Carrying the divine bow gifted to him by Vishwamitra and possessing knowledge of powerful astras, Ram stood calmly before an army that appeared impossible to defeat. The Rakshasas attacked from every direction. They charged with spears, swords, maces, axes, and other weapons, covering the battlefield with their fury. Their enormous numbers created the appearance of an unstoppable force. Yet, Ram remained steady. With incredible speed and precision, he released arrows that shattered enemy weapons before they could reach him. One after another, the attacking warriors fell as Ram moved through the battlefield with skill of a master warrior. Seeing their forces suffering heavy losses, the Rakshasas changed their strategy. They began throwing massive stones and using their supernatural abilities to overwhelm him. Ram responded by invoking powerful celestial weapons. Through the use of the divine astras, he created confusion among the enemy ranks and destroyed large proportions of army. The Rakshasas, unable to understand how one warrior could appear everywhere at once, turned against one another in their confusion. The commanders of Khar's army entered the battle, hoping to change the outcome. One after another, they fell before Ram. More and more warriors rushed forward, but none could overcome the Prince of Ayodhya. His arrows moved faster than the eye could follow, and his mastery over celestial weapons turned the battlefield into a place of complete defeat for the Rakshasa army. Within a short time, the enormous force that had marched against him was destroyed. The surviving Rakshasa fled in fear, leaving behind the battlefield where Ram stood victorious. Only Khar remained. The powerful ruler of the Dandaka entered the final confrontation with confidence and rage. He possessed great strength and experience, but he was facing a warrior whose purpose was guided by Dharma itself. After a fierce battle, Ram released a final arrow that struck Khar down. The forest became silent. The danger that had threatened the sages and innocent beings of Dandaka had been removed. But the consequences of this victory would travel far beyond the forest. News of Ram's extraordinary battle spread across kingdoms and eventually reached the island of Lanka. There, the ruler of the Rakshasa heard the story. His name was Ravan, and the events that followed would change the course of the entire Ramayana. Chapter 11 Ravan, the Rise of the Lord of Lanka. The news of Ram's incredible victory in Dandaka travelled far beyond the forests. Stories spread of a young prince from Ayodhya who had faced an army of thousands of Rakshasas and emerged victorious. Eventually, the tale reached the island kingdom of Lanka and the ears of its powerful ruler, Ravan. Ravan was unlike any ordinary king. He was the eldest son of the great sage Vishwamitra and Kaikeyi, a princess of the Rakshasa lineage. His birth itself represented a union of two powerful worlds, the knowledge and spiritual discipline of the sages and the strength and ambition of the Rakshasas. His father Vishwamitra was a highly respected sage known for his mastery of sacred knowledge and intense meditation. Through his earlier marriage to Ilavida, Vishwamitra had a son named Kuber, who would later become the divine guardian of wealth and the ruler of Lanka. Seeing the greatness achieved by Kuber, the Rakshasa king Sumali desired a similar future for his own lineage. He encouraged his daughter Kaikeyi to seek Vishwamitra as her husband, believing that their children would possess extraordinary power and one day surpass Kuber. Kaikeyi approached Vishwamitra and expressed her wish. The sage accepted her request but warned her that the circumstances of their union would influence the nature of their children. Because Kaikeyi came from a Rakshasa background, Vishwamitra predicted that most of their children would inherit powerful but destructive tendencies. Their first son was born with immense ambition and strength. He was known as Ravan. After him came Kumbhakarna, whose enormous size and power would become legendary. Their daughter Shurpanakha inherited the fierce nature of the Rakshasa clan. Their younger son Vibhishan, however, was different. True to Vishwamira's prediction, Vibhishan possessed a gentle nature and remained devoted to righteousness. From a young age, Ravan displayed extraordinary intelligence. Under his father's guidance, he mastered the Vedas, ancient scriptures, philosophy, and the secrets of warfare. He was not simply a warrior, he was a scholar, a strategist, and a ruler with tremendous abilities. But Ravan's greatest desire was power. Through intense penance and devotion, he sought the favor of gods. His dedication became so extreme that even Lord Shiva was impressed by his devotion and granted him powerful blessings, including a legendary sword. Later, Ravan performed an even greater penance to seek a boon from Lord Brahma. When Brahma appeared before him, he offered Ravan a reward for his devotion. Since immortality could not be granted, Ravan asked for protection against nearly every powerful being he could imagine: gods, celestial beings, demons, serpents, and other supernatural creatures. Confident in his own superiority, Ravan did not consider humans as a serious threat and left them out of his request. This single mistake would eventually determine his fate. With his new powers, Ravan began expanding his influence. He defeated powerful enemies, conquered kingdoms, and established himself as one of the most feared rulers in existence. Eventually, he seized control of Lanka, taking the kingdom that had once belonged to his half-brother Kuber. Under Ravan's leadership, Lanka became wealthy and powerful. But with time, his greatness was overshadowed by his arrogance. His knowledge became mixed with pride. His strength became mixed with cruelty. His ambition grew beyond limits, and he began challenging the authority of even the celestial beings. Ravan's power became such a threat that he eventually challenged Indra, the king of the gods, and defeated him in a battle. The gods realized that Ravan's boon made him almost impossible to defeat. They turned to Lord Vishnu for help, seeking a solution to restore balance. Vishnu understood the weakness hidden within Ravan's blessing. Since Ravan had never considered humans powerful enough to threaten him, the answer would come through the very beings that he had ignored. A new incarnation would soon take birth on earth, and that incarnation would become known as Ram. Chapter 12: The Golden Deer and Ravan's Scheme. After the humiliation she suffered in the forest, Shurpanakha returned to Lanka, carrying both anger and a desire for revenge. When Ravan saw his sister's condition, his pride was deeply wounded. In his eyes, an insult to his family was an insult to his own authority as the ruler of Lanka. Yet, Ravan did not immediately rush into battle. Despite his immense confidence, he understood that the warrior he was dealing with was extraordinary. Ram was not an ordinary human prince. A single warrior who could defeat thousands of powerful Rakshasas was someone who could not be underestimated. Shurpanakha, however, was determined to awaken her brother's anger. She reminded Ravan of the power he once displayed and accused him of becoming too comfortable, surrounded by luxury and royal pleasures. She argued that the Ravan of the past would never allow an enemy to challenge him without punishment. As she described her encounter with Ram and Lakshman, one detail captured Ravan's attention more than anything else: Sita. Shurpanakha spoke of Sita's extraordinary beauty, grace, and dignity. She described a woman unlike anyone Ravan had ever encountered. Slowly, curiosity turned into desire, and desire transformed into obsession. The thought of possessing Sita consumed Ravan's mind. Shurpanakha suggested a plan. If Sita could be taken away from Ram, she believed the prince would be broken by grief. Without his wife beside him, Ram would become vulnerable, allowing Ravan to defeat him. Ravan decided to act, but he knew he would need someone with a special ability to carry out this plan. He traveled to meet Maricha, a powerful Rakshasa who possessed the ability to transform into different forms. Maricha was not unfamiliar with Ram's strength. Years earlier, when Ram was still young, Maricha had encountered the prince and barely survived the confrontation. He had experienced firsthand the extraordinary power hidden behind Ram's calm appearance. When Ravan explained his plan, Maricha immediately understood the danger. He warned Ravan that provoking Ram would bring destruction upon Lanka. He urged the king to abandon this path and return to the safety of his palace. But Ravan was not willing to listen. His pride had already convinced him that no one could challenge him. His victories, his blessings, and his power had made him believe that even destiny itself could not stand against him. He ordered Maricha to assist him. Knowing that refusing Ravan could mean his own death, Maricha reluctantly agreed. Together, the two Rakshasas prepared for their deception. Maricha would use his magical abilities to transform into an extraordinary golden deer, a creature so beautiful and unusual that it would capture Sita's attention. Once Ram was drawn away from the forest dwelling, Ravan could carry out the next stage of his plan. It was a carefully designed trap. But neither Ravan nor Maricha fully understood that their actions were moving them closer to their very destiny that they were trying to avoid. Chapter 13: The Illusion of the Golden Deer. Deep within the forests of Panchavati, where Ram, Sita, and Lakshman had built their simple home, an unusual sight appeared one day. Among the trees emerged a deer unlike any creature Sita had ever seen. Its appearance seemed almost magical. Its golden coat shimmered beneath sunlight, and its movements were so graceful and captivating. To Sita, it looked like a creature from a dream rather than one belonging to the natural world. Filled with wonder, she called Ram and asked him to bring the deer to her. She imagined how beautiful it would be to have such a rare creature with them, and perhaps one day take it back with them when their exile ended. Ram looked carefully at the animal. Although the deer appeared enchanting, something about it felt unusual. The creature's beauty seemed beyond what nature could create. Lakshman immediately sensed danger. He reminded Ram that the forest was filled with Rakshasas who possessed the ability to create illusions. A creature of such extraordinary appearance, he believed, could not be trusted. But Sita had already become deeply fascinated by the deer. Seeing her happiness and knowing her desire came from innocent admiration, Ram decided to investigate. He reassured Lakshman that he would not act carelessly. If the creature was truly an ordinary deer, he would bring it back to Sita. If it was a deception created by a Rakshasa, he would deal with the threat. Before leaving, Ram gave Lakshman a clear instruction: remain with Sita and protect her until he returned. The golden deer moved quickly through the forest as Ram followed. But the longer the chase continued, the more suspicious Ram became. The creature moved with impossible speed. Every time Ram came close, it escaped just beyond reach, drawing him deeper into the wilderness. Eventually, Ram realized that the strange animal was not what it appeared to be. He prepared his bow and released an arrow. The shot struck the deer and the illusion disappeared. The beautiful creature transformed back into its true form, Maricha, the Rakshasa who had been sent by Ravan to deceive Ram. As Maricha lay defeated, he carried out the final part of Ravan's plan. Using his remaining strength, he called out in Ram's voice, crying for Lakshman and Sita. The sound echoed through the forest. Ram stood silently beside Maricha, troubled by the demon's final act. He understood that this was not a random attack. The mention of Sita and Lakshman filled his heart with concern, and he immediately turned back towards the forest dwelling. Meanwhile, Sita and Lakshman heard the distant cry. To Sita, it sounded like Ram was in danger. Fear immediately took hold of her heart. She urged Lakshman to leave and search for his brother, but Lakshman remained calm. He knew Ram's strength better than anyone. He understood that no ordinary danger could defeat him, and he suspected that the voice was part of Rakshasa's deception. He reminded Sita that Ram had specifically instructed him to stay and protect her. However, Sita's fear continued to grow. She began imagining the worst possibilities. The thought that Ram might be suffering because she had desired the deer filled her with guilt and anxiety. Unable to control her emotions, her fear turned into anger towards Lakshman. She questioned why was he refusing to help when Ram might need him. Lakshman found himself facing an impossible choice. He had promised Ram to protect Sita, but he could also not ignore Sita's distress. The deception created by Ravan was working exactly as planned. The forest was about to witness one of the most defining moments of the Ramayana. Chapter 14: The Abduction of Sita. The illusion created by Maricha had achieved its purpose. Hearing what appeared to be Ram's desperate cry from deep within the forest, Sita became overwhelmed with fear. She turned to Lakshman and urged him to leave immediately and search for his brother. Lakshman, however, remained unconvinced. He knew Ram's abilities. He understood that the voice they had heard was likely a deception created by the Rakshasas who inhabited the forest. Ram had specifically entrusted him with protecting Sita, and he refused to abandon his duty. But Sita's fear continued to increase. Her thoughts were consumed by the possibility that Ram was suffering somewhere alone. The guilt of having asked him to pursue an unusual deer weighed heavily on her heart. In that moment of panic, she spoke words she would regret later. She accused Lakshman of refusing to help because of hidden intentions. The accusation deeply wounded him. Lakshman had always regarded Ram as a father figure and Sita as someone worthy of the highest respect. His entire life had been dedicated to serving and protecting him. Yet, he understood that Sita was speaking from fear and desperation rather than from her true feelings. Unable to calm her and torn between his promise to Ram and his concern for Sita's distress, Lakshman finally agreed to search for his brother. Before leaving, he created a protective boundary around the dwelling and instructed Sita not to cross it. This safeguard was meant to keep her protected while he went in search of Ram. With one final glance back, Lakshman entered the forest. Sita was now alone. Not long afterward, an elderly ascetic approached the cottage. He appeared to be a humble Brahmin, seeking food and shelter. In those times, offering hospitality to travelers, especially sages and holy men, was considered a sacred duty. Refusing such a request was believed to bring misfortune. Although she was anxious and worried about Ram and Lakshman, Sita welcomed the visitor with kindness. She prepared food and brought it forward. But the stranger did not accept the offering from where he sat. He requested Sita come closer. Caught between her concern for the guest and her desire to follow Lakshman's instruction, Sita stepped beyond the protective boundary. The moment she crossed it, the illusion vanished. The harmless-looking ascetic revealed his true identity. Before Sita stood Ravan, the powerful king of Lanka. His disguise had been a carefully planned deception. He had waited for the perfect moment, when Ram was away chasing the illusion and Lakshman had been drawn away from the cottage. Ravan revealed his intentions and demanded that Sita accompany him to Lanka, but Sita refused. She remained steadfast, declaring her devotion to Ram and rejecting Ravan's pride and arrogance. No wealth, power, or royal status could tempt her to abandon her husband. Enraged by her refusal, Ravan used his strength and carried Sita away from the forest. Her cries echoed through the trees. As the flying chariot moved across the sky towards Lanka, her voice reached the ears of a powerful guardian of the forest. Perched among the trees was Jatayu, the aged king of the vultures. Though old in years, Jatayu possessed great courage and had a deep bond of friendship with King Dasharatha, Ram's father. Seeing Ravan carrying Sita away, Jatayu immediately understood that a great injustice was taking place. Despite knowing the immense power of the king of Lanka, he chose to fight. The battle between the elderly bird and the mighty Ravan was about to begin.